When you have that much anxiety about going to the dentist, anything...
Seeking experts for the answers and sharing the knowledge to distinguish fact from fiction.
With this breaking news, we're seeing a lot of claims on social media.
No question left unanswered.
Police say this is true. All 4 of those shootings are connected.
Such as stabbing, sexual abuse, or even murder. Physical deficiencies in the environment, such as unlocked doors and large holes in the walls, permit and even facilitate the brutality. Incarcerated people use makeshift weapons built out of jail fixtures to attack others, including vulnerable people with mental health needs and 17-year-old young people. In 2023 alone, we identified 314 stabbings and more than 1,000 assaults. This rate of violence exceeds what we've seen in other cities across the country. The Fulton County Jail had as many stabbings in a single month as the Miami-Dade County Jail had all year. And that's a facility with 1.5 times more people. Since 2022, 6 people in the jail have lost their lives to violence. I'll walk through additional core findings set forth in the report that we're issuing today. Living conditions at the jail are hazardous and unsanitary. Housing units are flooded from broken toilets. Roaches, rodents, and pests abound. Standing water, exposed wiring, and vermin make living areas unsafe. The jail does not provide enough food, leaving people severely malnourished. The jail fails to provide constitutionally adequate medical and mental health care to people at the jail, exposing people to preventable bad outcomes, including injury, seriousness, illness, pain and suffering, mental health decline, and even death. The lack of security staff and failure to prioritize health services impede access to care. Medical emergencies do not receive appropriate medical responses. People at risk of suicide do not receive sufficient protection, and people with serious mental health needs do not receive adequate treatment. The jail uses solitary confinement, also known as restrictive housing, in discriminatory and unconstitutional ways that expose people, particularly 17-year-olds and people with mental health disabilities, to risk of harm, including acute mental illness and self-injury. The jail uses lengthy confinement in restrictive housing as punishment without written explanation, which violates due process. As Georgia is one of only 4 states where the juvenile justice system's jurisdiction ends at 16, there are 17-year-old boys and girls also held at the jail. And these 17-year-old boys and girls are exposed to particular harm. The jail does not provide special educational services to 17-year-olds who are entitled to them under a federal law known as the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. It fails to protect these children from violence, including sexual abuse, and it uses isolation to punish them, which both violates their rights and contradicts clear research that such isolation uniquely harms our young people. The jail staff also uses excessive force. This includes deploying tasers without reasonable cause. For example, detention officers tased a man after he said he felt like hurting himself and needed to see a mental health specialist. Such violations stem from understaffing, poor policies, and lack of training and supervisory failures. The summary that I have just shared is harrowing enough, but individual experiences are gut-wrenching. For example, LaShawn Thompson, a black man with serious mental illness, entered the jail on low-level charges and was confined to the mental health housing unit. 3 months later, staff found him dead in his cell, infested with lice, and as a medical examiner concluded, neglected to death. Several months before that, another black man with serious mental illness died after he stopped taking his medication. 2 more black men with mental health disabilities were murdered by their cellmates. Weeks after we opened our investigation, 6 more black men died at the jail. All of this is a racial justice issue. 91% of the people living in these abhorrent, unconstitutional conditions are black, as compared to 45% of Fulton County's overall population. It's also important to note that the vast majority of the approximately 2,000 people held at the jail have not been convicted of a crime. They are awaiting hearings and have yet to be tried, many of them. There are also a significant number of people with mental health disabilities. During our investigation, we worked closely with correctional, medical, mental health, and educational experts. We physically inspected the jail and observed housing units. We visited medical and mental health service areas. We reviewed thousands of pages of documents and interviewed dozens of jail staff and leadership. And we listened to the people held inside the jail and their advocates and their family members. We thank officials for their cooperation, and we thank all of those who provided valuable information and whose advocacy predates this investigation. I'll note that officials have taken preliminary steps to improve conditions, but they simply are not enough. We hope our findings report sounds an alarm that will prompt the Fulton County Board of Commissioners and the Sheriff's Office to swiftly implement the comprehensive reforms necessary to ensure constitutional conditions going forward. At the end of the day, people do not abandon their civil and constitutional rights at the jailhouse door. Jails and prisons across the country must protect people from the kind of gross violations and unconstitutional conditions that we have uncovered here. I'll now turn the floor over to U.S. Attorney Buchanan.
Good afternoon. I'm Ryan Buchanan, and I'm the United States Attorney here in the Northern District of Georgia. 1974, Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall wrote, "When the prison gates slam behind an inmate, he does not lose his human quality, his mind does not become closed to ideas, his yearning for self-respect does not end, nor is his quest for self-realization concluded." 50 years later, our comprehensive investigation into the conditions of confinement at the Fulton County Jail has, at its basic level, revealed that the men and women and young people who find themselves housed at the jail are often left to wonder whether their humanity remained intact once they crossed the threshold of the jail facilities. Whether at the main jail, which is known to many in our community as Rice Street, or at its annex facilities, people in custody in Fulton County who are accused of crimes or awaiting formal charges or trials must protect themselves from brutal physical attacks by other detainees, subjected to frequent excessive force, manage their well-being with inadequate food and unsanitary living conditions, and hope that they can find access to a strained medical and mental health care program. The most obvious casualties of the civil rights violations occurring in the jail are those who leave the jail in body bags. But our investigation has revealed hundreds more injured, traumatized, and dehumanized people, all of whom are just as deserving of the protections of the Constitution as all of us in this room. Since we announced our investigation in July of 2023, the United States Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Georgia and the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice have worked diligently to meet our shared mission: to advance the public safety, to uphold the rule of law, and to protect civil rights. There is no greater example of this mission at work than protecting and vindicating the rights of those who are under the custody and control of jail authorities, who themselves are duty-bound to protect the public and those in their custody. We began our investigation after LaShawn Thompson was found in his cell, neglected to death, covered in lice. But in the time since his death, several more young men detained in the jail have died, and many died violent deaths. Our investigation revealed unacceptably high incidents of assaults and stabbings, and in some cases, most disturbingly, jail staff witnessed and allowed the attacks without intervention. 2023 alone, there were over 1,000 assaults and more than 300 stabbings in the Fulton County Jail. It outpaces the rate of similar assaults in other major city jails, almost 2 to 1. Those numbers only reflect the reported attacks. Many detainees told our team that they explained that they feared for their safety if they were reported that they had been stabbed or assaulted. One such detainee was left untreated for multiple stab wounds for a week until our team alerted the jail of his injuries. Also unaccounted for in these disturbing numbers are numerous allegations of violent rape, sexual assault, and harassment. The crisis of violence in the Fulton County Jail has resulted in part because of the lack of effective classification and housing planning, which allows for extremely violent individuals and gang members to be housed with vulnerable and low-risk individuals. And particularly, vulnerable individuals are most subject to violence in the jail, including people with serious mental illness, gay and transgender detainees, and 17-year-olds. In addition, the Fulton County Jail employs too few guards relative to the number of detainees to keep people safe, and poor maintenance of basic fixtures allows violence to go unchecked. But numbers aside, jail staff are often unaware of violence because they conduct inadequate security rounds. We uncovered incidents where hours or even days passed before victims of assaults were discovered by staff. In one shocking case, while an officer sat in an observation tower, a man was killed with his hands and his feet bound. He was not found until his body was extremely cold. Additionally, hundreds of broken light fixtures and cell doors allow violent detainees to move about at will in the shadows, and sometimes through the very walls of the facility. Equally alarming, men and women in the Fulton County Jail also experience violence from the staff. Our investigation showed that the crisis of violence, the lack of security at the Fulton County Jail, is paired with staff that resort to the use of force too quickly and too often. We found that staff were regularly deploying tasers and pepper spray without any warning, and for minor rule infractions like failing to hang up a phone quickly enough, yelling, or not putting items away as instructed. The rampant use of tasers is particularly disturbing. The risk of cavalier deployment of tasers is not just the temporary pain of electrocution. Detainees have been hospitalized for serious injuries caused by probes that are embedded in sensitive parts of the body, like the neck and even in the bone. The excessive use of force in the jail is not confined to a few bad actors. Officers lack policy and training guidance on whether and when force is appropriate, and when officers cross the line, the jail rarely holds them to account. In some cases, the policy is glaringly inconsistent with established use of force techniques. Written policies explicitly state that staff may deploy their tasers against suicidal or emotionally disturbed persons without any assessment of danger to themselves or to others. Staff are permitted to use force when a person interrupts their work. And the use of force reports and supervisor reviews bear this out. Supervisors rarely assess a need for the use of force if they do it at all. Perhaps most concerning, our investigation showed that even when the jail determines that an officer used excessive force, discipline is virtually non-existent. Those officers go back to their jobs to repeat the same conduct. Aside from the glaring risk of violence, detainees face the insidious threat of unsafe living conditions, constant exposure to rodents and pests, and an unsettling disregard for food safety. Detainees in the Fulton County Jail lack basic necessities like working toilets and sinks, and are exposed to flooding, standing water, mold, and what can only be described as filth. Pests carrying bacteria and disease not only run rampant in food preparation areas, but have infested the bodies of the people in the jail, people like LaShawn Thompson. Earlier this year, our team was evacuated from a housing unit in the jail because of a lice outbreak. Given the high incidence of violence in the jail, the need for adequate medical and mental health care is critical. But Fulton County Jail has failed to provide constitutionally adequate care to the men, women, and young people in the custody of Fulton County Jail in virtually all respects. For a time, because of the unsafe conditions in the jail, Fulton County's health care provider, NAFCare, nearly terminated its contract to provide medical and mental health services for fear that their staff would become victims of the dangerous environment without proper security escorts. The lack of security left an entire floor of the jail without adequate access to care because it was simply too dangerous for the health care workers to go inside. Medication and treatment are often impeded by flooding in a unit, power outages, and the unavailability of officer escorts. This lack of care in the Fulton County Jail has led to at least 17 non-homicide, non-suicide deaths in 2022 and 2023, a rate that is more than twice the national average since 2019. A detainee who reported chest pain later died of a heart attack. Jail failed to assess a man for rapid weight loss before he died, much like LaShawn Thompson, who died after losing over 30 pounds in 3 months. These figures likely underreport the true death toll of people who were transported out of the jail to Grady Hospital and died outside of the jail walls. Someone dies in the jail, there's little or no effort by the jail to determine the root cause of their death. 75% of the people who have died in Fulton County Jail since 2021 had a current mental health diagnosis or a history of mental illness. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the mental health treatment options and suicide prevention practices are grossly inadequate in Fulton County Jail. Our team observed firsthand how custody staff deprioritize mental health issues and fail to respond appropriately to concerns. Requests for mental health treatment are delayed or ignored, and mental health staff are simply unable to provide the minimum standard of care for those who need it. Daily medication is often unavailable, and suicidal detainees are often isolated and locked in restrictive housing in lieu of treatment. And when people are released from the Fulton County Jail, they are frequently left without the medication needed to sustain their health, without notice to their families, and sometimes actively experiencing a mental health episode. This is not a recipe for ensuring the safety of these individuals upon release or the safety of our community, and it is constitutionally unacceptable. Finally, I'd like to speak about a population in the Fulton County Jail that many may not know exists, a population of 17-year-old boys and girls. All of the constitutional violations that I've discussed today apply with equal force to the young people housed at Rice Street and the annex facilities. The average stay of a 17-year-old in the Fulton County Jail is 392 days. In that time, they are particularly and uniquely at risk for violence, lack of access to mental health care, risk of suicide while in isolation in restrictive housing. During the team's tour of the South Annex, they learned the boys there were held in their cells for 22 hours or more, frequently. The girls housed at Rice Street fare no better. And to the extent that these young people require a kind of specialized educational programs that are called for by federal law, they are not getting them. In fact, no educational services of any kind are provided to the 17-year-old detainees in Fulton County. These young people deserve better. You'll see that our report lays out the bare minimum measures the Fulton County Jail must take to comply with its obligations under the Constitution and federal law. We are appreciative of the cooperation of Fulton County, the Fulton County Sheriff thus far, and we look forward to working with them going forward to remedy these civil rights violations in the weeks and months to come. The Northern District of Georgia prioritizes the protection and enforcement of civil rights for our district's most vulnerable residents. We are grateful for the impactful partnership of our colleagues from the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division. We would not be here today without their collaboration. 2022, when I became U.S. Attorney, we formalized our tradition of civil rights work in this office. It's a tradition that dates back to the very first United States Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia. We did so by formally establishing a public integrity and civil rights section. This talented, dedicated team of assistant U.S. attorneys, investigators, paralegals, legal assistants, and even interns are to be commended for this work. This team is comprised of people who are citizens of this district, people who live in Fulton County and work every day in Fulton County. They have spent countless hours in the Fulton County Jail speaking with the men, women, and young people housed at the Fulton County Jail. I'm proud to be their colleague. I'm grateful for their relentless effort in upholding the rule of law, advancing the public safety, and protecting civil rights. That's our mission. We relish the opportunity to fight for the rule of law, for the safety of our citizens, and for the civil rights of every human being who lives in the Northern District of Georgia. We do so because our Constitution and our mission mandate equal justice under the law for everyone. Thank you.
At this time, we'll open the press conference to question and answers.
Do you, just listening to everything that you guys laid out, what is your recommendation? It sounds like Fulton County Jail needs to be shut down. Do you recommend Fulton County Jail be shut down immediately?
Our report actually sets forth the remedial measures that we think that the jail can put in place to cure the violations that we have identified. They are set forth in the back section of our report. They include improving staffing and security, using a housing and classification system, reducing contraband through increased oversight, improving the physical conditions of the jail, ensuring that medical and mental health care is constitutionally adequate, and ensuring appropriate use of restrictive housing to avoid serious risks associated with isolation. So in short, we can fix these problems, and we are pleased that Fulton County has pledged to cooperate with us in doing so in the road ahead.
We've heard a lot of back and forth between the Fulton County Sheriff and the commissioners about who's ultimately responsible for these problems. Were you guys identifying kind of a point person who needs to lead these charges? Is it a funding issue? Is it a sheriff issue?
Well, we're looking forward to working with Fulton County and the Fulton County Sheriff's Department to negotiate a resolution. And we recognize that this is an important issue for the community, and they will certainly play an important part in the process.
Is there one that's kind of more responsible, or I guess ultimately responsible for the well-being of these inmates?
I think all officials have a role here and look forward to working with both the county and the sheriff's department in the road ahead.
Can you point to any, what is your specific time frame, and then how will your office proceed based on the efforts of the county to address this issue?
We are hoping to turn the page today. We've provided our findings to the county and look forward to moving swiftly to address the violations that we have identified. This is a life and death matter for many, given the severity of the violations that we have uncovered.
Have they been given a time frame to address it?
No specific time frame, but we are ready to roll up our sleeves and work now with the county to address these serious issues.
Ma'am, you've listed a number of civil rights violations. Is anybody being held accountable for the actions that have happened thus far, be it charges, legal action? Who's being held accountable? Is anybody being held accountable for what's happened?
It's an important question. We have heard the calls for accountability. This is a civil investigation carried out pursuant to a federal law known as the Civil Rights of Institutionalized Persons Act. What we're seeking to do here is put in place the systemic reforms needed to ensure the safety of those housed at the Fulton County Jail going forward.
I know things are laid out in the report, black and white, but did you know it was going to be this bad, this inhumane, unconstitutional when you went in? And does any of this shock you?
Of course it's shocking. People have died. We started in July of 2023 after the tragic death of LaShawn Thompson. Obviously, when you start something where someone has died, you're already at, in many respects, rock bottom. And so we continued to investigate. Unfortunately, we found that LaShawn Thompson was not the only person who died as a result of these conditions. And then if you scale back beyond just those who died, but those who I mentioned were traumatized, dehumanized, and the like, you come up with a situation that we believe is just unacceptable for our community. And so all of the atrocities that are listed in this report are disturbing. All warrant prompt attention by the Fulton County authorities, and we look forward to working with them as quickly as possible to provide a remedy.
Have you been in contact with LaShawn Thompson's family? They've been very vocal about his death, held protests, all kinds of things. Have you guys personally reached out, or the team reached out to the Thompson family?
We've been in touch with a number of families, a number of advocates, and people housed at the jail, all who shared their testimony, and those stories and lived experiences of people housed at the Fulton County Jail very much informed the findings that we issued today.
Last question.
Is there any kind of action you guys can take to ensure that these recommendations become reality in an efficient manner?
Well, as I said, we are prepared to roll up our sleeves and begin working today with Fulton County officials to address these violations. But we hope our findings report sends a loud message to other officials across the country about the need to ensure that conditions for people housed in jails in our country need to comply with the Constitution and need to comply with federal law.
Meet Panera's new Ciabatta Dippers, a duo built for dipping. Here for a limited time.
Chesley, thank you. Right now, the GBI is investigating a deadly overnight police chase in a shooting that started in Coweta County and ended in Fulton County. Officers tell us it all started with an attempted traffic stop and ended with a K-9 officer being shot and killed, as well as the driver of that car. 11 Alive's Erica Murphy joining us from Fairburn this midday. Erica, what are you learning right now?
Aisha, we just learned moments ago that the suspect involved in this deadly shooting and high-speed chase was 23-year-old Jason Wilson of Atlanta. I'm going to step aside because you can see that the car that Wilson was driving is still lodged here on these railroad tracks. We have workers out here right now trying to dislodge that car from the tracks. This all started out in Coweta County but ended up here in Fulton County. We are here on Roosevelt Highway near Tommy Lee Cook Road, where deputies say Wilson was driving over 100 miles an hour, and when they tried to pull him over, he tried to get away. Coweta County Sheriff deputies called in Fairburn police to help out. Deputies had to perform what's called a pit maneuver to get that vehicle the suspect was driving to stop. That vehicle ended up over here on these railroad tracks. GBI officials say that Wilson shot at a deputy and the canine officer Titan with an AK pistol. Sadly, Titan died right here at the scene. The deputy was grazed by a bullet, but not before he shot at Wilson. Wilson died on the scene, but the deputy is expected to make a full recovery. Now, according to GBI, this traffic stop was initiated because of a problem with the vehicle's registration. We also know that the K-9 deputy that lost his life here had served with the Coweta County Sheriff's Office for over 5 years. Reporting from Fairburn, Erica Murphy, 11 Alive News.
All right, Erica, thank you so much. A lot of new
K-9 are dead and a deputy is hurt after being involved in a late-night high-speed chase that ended in a shooting. The chase crossed from Coweta County into Fulton County, and it started around 11 o'clock last night when a deputy tried to stop a Chrysler 300 for a registration violation on Highway 29. The GBI says the driver, 23-year-old Jason Wilson, sped off. Deputies say at some point the driver then opened fire using an AK pistol, hitting both the deputy and a K-9 Titan. That's when the deputy and other officers returned fire, hitting and killing Wilson. The sheriff's office says K-9 Titan and his handler had just recently finished training and started to form a bond, and that Titan has played a pivotal role in various operations.
K-9 Titan has been with the department about 5 years and has had over 100 deployments where he successfully located dozens of suspects as well as missing persons and firearms that were thrown by suspects in the woods.
We are working to learn more about the condition of the deputy who was hurt. The GBI is investigating.
No offense, but if you're paying more than
There is a storm coming, an event like the world has never seen before. The emerging event will have little to do with weather, but more about developing situations that were foreseen many years ago. We have always warned you during severe weather and news events that affected many. Now, Channel 1 Atlanta begins a new series to warn you about what's coming soon and make sure you are prepared. Join us on a new journey, as according to a recent survey, a lot of people believe we are living in the last days. Current news events show us now more than ever. In history, time is setting the stage for the coming storm, a new series, now playing only on Channel 1 Atlanta.
Again, a confirmed tornado on the ground in downtown Conyers. It's a very dangerous and life-threatening weather event. Get into the interior section of your house, away from windows or a basement if you have. And there's the debris right there in the Millstead area near the Rockdale Medical Center. Right. Channel 1 Atlanta.
Ballots, county officials will then immediately move on to recounting every ballot cast in the U.S. Senate race. That's nearly 7 million paper ballots that our 67 county election offices will recount as they complete the process. During the recount, counties will use a different method or different equipment to tabulate votes than what they use to compile their unofficial results. This is done to ensure any potential tabulation issues can be identified. Counties must begin the recount process no later than Wednesday, November 20th. They must complete the recount by noon on November 26th and must report their results to the Department of State by noon on November 27th. Once we've received all recount results, the department will then publish those online on November 27th. One final note on timing. State law requires counties to submit their unofficial certified results to the department on November 25th this year. Counties will certify the results for all other races by that deadline, Then we'll certify the U.S. Senate results as soon as their recount is completed. Over the next 2 weeks, the department's election returns page, electionreturns.pa.gov, will continue to reflect the unofficial totals that counties report to the department. Updates there will include counties' tallies of those remaining 80,000 ballots that I mentioned earlier. Those updates are separate from the recount. As I mentioned a moment ago, the results of the recount will be published online on November 27th. Ultimately, all 67 counties' final certified results will reflect all eligible votes cast in the 2024 general election. To the hundreds of county election workers across the Commonwealth who continue their work to certify an accurate count and to honor the will of Pennsylvania's voters, I'm grateful. More information about the statewide recount process and the process for county boards of elections to get the final certification is available on the department's website, vote.pa.gov. Thank you.
All right, you just heard from Republican Secretary of State there in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Al Schmidt, updating us on the parameters and the rules of how recounts go there in Pennsylvania, and one has now been triggered legally in the state for the Senate race there between Dave McCormick and Bob Casey. The AP calling it, you see there how close it is as well. But McCormick was in D.C. for his Senate orientation. Casey has yet to concede. Speaking of those candidates who have yet to concede their Senate race, I'm talking about Wisconsin. GOP challenger Eric Hovde has not conceded yet to Democratic incumbent Tammy Baldwin. The Associated Press called the race for Baldwin. You see how close it is there. We'll be talking about this particular race and possibly what Hovde has in store to possibly challenge the results of the election there. Whether or not he's weighing a recount remains to be seen, but Hovde also has not conceded his election loss. So stay tuned for that. My colleague Austin Westfall will have it. In the meantime, let's take yet another quick commercial break. When we come back, we're focusing our efforts yet again on Capitol Hill because today on the Fox News Channel's program, Special Report with Bret Baier, the anchor, he interviewed now incoming Senate Majority Leader-elect John Thune after winning those internal Senate Republican elections just yesterday. We'll have that conversation after the break. And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox on this busy Thursday. I'm Andrew Kraft. So if you haven't heard the news just yet, in case you weren't watching live mere minutes ago, that Donald Trump there announcing at this gala, the America First Institute Policy Gala, that Governor Doug Burgum is going to head the Department of Interior. So he'll be leaving the governor's mansion there in Bismarck, and he'll be going to Washington there. If he is confirmed by the Senate. So remember, Doug Burgum ran for president in the presidential primaries. He dropped out before any major consequential caucuses or primaries. And now he could become Trump's Interior Secretary. So wanted to get that in there just in case you missed it. If we want to re-rack some of the sound and video for later on tonight, we can do that as well. But Trump said he was going to make it official tomorrow, but Burgum was in the audience in attendance, and he made it official right then and there in true Trump fashion. In the meantime, though, let's go south to South Dakota. Let's talk about John Thune. He's the incoming Senate Majority Leader-elect. Remember, the Republican leader in the Senate for 18 years had been Mitch McConnell until earlier this year. He said he was stepping back from that role, and that essentially precipitated these internal elections that were held just yesterday, and Thune winning on the second ballot. Remember, there were two ballots at play. Rick Scott was in the mix for the first. He was eliminated after the first round, and then it was between John Thune and John Cornyn, the two Johns. John Thune getting the most votes there. Well, Special Reports' Bret Baier on the Fox News channel had Thune on his program today, and he got into a lot of issues, a lot of questions here. We want to play that conversation for you right now.
The coalition is broad and strong and growing. Mr. President, the American people handed President Trump and Senate Republicans a decisive victory. And now the real work begins, delivering on our agenda.
Well, Senate Republicans have selected South Dakota's John Thune to be the next majority leader of the Senate. Thune serving as minority whip in the current Congress. He joins us tonight. Senator, congratulations.
Thanks. Great to be with you, Brett.
So this is a lot happening. The breaking news today was Robert Kennedy Jr. Being selected as the nominee for President Trump for HHS. First, your reaction to that?
Well, I mean, these are exciting times, obviously, right? The president got a big mandate. The American people want change in this country. They're tired of the Biden, Harris, Schumer agenda, and they want President Trump to fix some things. And he wants to get a team in place that can do that, and we're going to work with him to see that he gets his team installed as quickly as possible so he can implement his agenda. All these people have a process that they have to go through. All these nominees are, advise and consent. That's the Senate's constitutional role when it comes to confirmation of nominations to the executive branch of the government, and we take that role seriously, but we also are not going to allow the Democrats to obstruct or block President Trump and the will of the American people.
So you've said that you would do recess appointments if it came to that. What's the threshold for getting to that point for recess appointments?
Well, what I said is, Brett, and I think this is that all options are on the table, including recess appointments. Hopefully it doesn't get to that, but we'll find out fairly quickly whether the Democrats want to play ball or not. And I think part of it is getting these folks. We'll start having confirmation hearings as soon as the new Senate is sworn in January. President takes the oath of office January 20th. By the time he takes the oath of office, hopefully a lot of those nominees will be through their confirmation hearings and will be ready to act on them on the Senate floor. And then it's a question of how much do the Democrats resist or object or try to block those nominations from going forward. And we're going to grind them out. I mean, we're just going to keep consistently moving, and we'll see what kind of cooperation we get. And then we'll, like I said, we'll make decisions about where do we go from there.
Right, but for example, on the Health Committee, you have Senator Collins, Senator Murkowski. They've already raised concerns about RFK Jr., I think. When you have Matt Gaetz, there's already some Republicans who have spoken out and said some things. The numbers start to get problematic if that is a problem, and your onus for you is to try to get the president who he wants to be in the cabinet. Do you then punt to a recess and try to recess the Senate for 10 days and get those appointments in?
Well, it's an option, but obviously it takes, you have to have all Republicans vote to recess as well. So the same Republicans that you mentioned that might have a problem voting for somebody under regular order probably also have a problem voting to put the Senate into recess. You have to have concurrence from the House. There's a process. All this is a process. But I don't think any of those things are necessarily off the table. I think we have to have all the options on the table. And these nominees deserve their day in court. They deserve a hearing, a confirmation hearing, an opportunity to be vetted, and the Senate will perform its constitutional role under advice and consent. But we are not going to allow the Democrats to thwart the will of the American people in giving President Trump the people that he wants in those positions to implement his agenda.
When it comes to Matt Gaetz for AG, obviously there was a House ethics investigation ongoing, and that report was scheduled to come out. He's now resigned. We don't know what's going to happen. Would you say that that report is going to factor into his hearings?
Well, my guess is at some point it gets out there. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what that process is at the moment, but these confirmation hearings, they are fairly comprehensive in terms of the vetting process that nominees go through. So I can't speak to that specifically, Brett, at the moment, but I wouldn't. I think we'll have to see, but I wouldn't rule out the possibility of that happening.
I mean, there could be some fireworks here coming up. This is not going to be easy.
No, none of this is going to be easy. But again, the President Trump had a huge mandate from the American people. Not only the popular vote, the electoral vote, they were historic. And the people in this country want change. He wants to bring that about. And I always believe that you defer to a president when it comes to the people they want in their cabinet and to do a lot of these important jobs. But obviously there is a process whereby we get down and scrub all these nominees and figure out whether or not, one, they're qualified and are they people who are fit to hold these offices.
You spoke with Speaker Johnson today. What does that agenda look like going forward with now the House and the Senate? Are there things that you're going to be able to do that obviously you couldn't before? Does immigration come back up in a different form?
Well, Speaker Johnson and the White House and Senate Republicans are aligned when it comes to the things that we need to do. And some of them deal with the economy. That's taxes, that's regulations, that's energy dominance, and some of them deal with important issues like the southern border, which has been a disaster under the Biden-Harris administration. So we're going to look at, obviously, with a unified control of the government, House, Senate, and White House, there's a procedure, a legislative procedure called budget reconciliation that enables you to do some things that you otherwise probably wouldn't be able to do, at least not at 51 votes. And I think what we would hope to do is see if there are ways in which we could achieve some of the president's objectives on the border as he takes some executive actions. Some of those are going to need funding, whether it deals with the wall or whether it deals with deportations or any of those sorts of things, manpower. We want to be as helpful as we possibly can helping him achieve that and look at as many legislative options to make that happen. And so we'll be having those conversations, and Speaker Johnson and I have already talked about it. We've been working on it for some time in the Senate through the various committees and trying to figure out what's the best way to accomplish as much of this agenda as we can, given the unique opportunity we have of a House, a Senate that are both in Republican hands and a Republican president, President Trump.
And just to spell it out, reconciliation under the economic issues would allow a 50-vote threshold for pieces of that immigration bill that deal with money and funding and that sort of thing.
So the Democrats use it extensively. They did the so-called American Rescue Plan, the so-called Inflation Reduction Act, all under budget reconciliation at 51 votes. And they put a lot of really bad policy in there, some of which we'll try and eliminate when we have the opportunity. But we think the scope has been expanded by the Democrats significantly when it comes to what is eligible for and could be considered under budget reconciliation and done in the Senate at 51 votes. Whereas under most circumstances, most consequential legislation in the Senate takes 60. So we're looking at those options right now, but I think it's a historic opportunity for this country, and we want to make the most of it because we think there's a lot that needs to be done to get the country back on track. And President Trump, when he campaigned across the country, these are the things that he talked about. And it's securing that southern border, it's strengthening our economy, it's making America strong in the world again, it's taxes, regulations, energy when it comes to the economy, and we're going to work with him as hard as we can and as efficiently and quickly as we can to get these things done.
Considering that win, that electoral win, are there things that Democrats will work with you on? Big things that maybe they wouldn't have before after this election?
I would hope so. I would think that the election results were an incredible repudiation of where they've been taking the country. And so it would strike me, at least, that Democrats, particularly if they have to run in 2026, might be inclined to help us on some of these issues. I think that's a possibility. I always hope that's the case. We'll find out soon enough.
The president-elect sent out a nice message congratulating you. Obviously, you've had a relationship over time. Where does that stand now?
Well, we have a good relationship. I mean, we're speaking regularly, and as I said, we are aligned in the things that we want to get done. And he's got a big agenda. He got a big mandate from the American people, and we want to help him achieve that agenda. And so we are in regular communication, and we'll continue that, along with, as I said, Speaker Johnson, the president, and his team, to make sure that he gets his team in place when it comes to nominations and when it comes to legislation and things that we can do to help him achieve those objectives. We are on board to make that happen.
This group set up to kind of look at cutting the federal government with Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy. It's not a part of the administration. It's kind of separate, but very close to. But a lot of what they do, one would think, would have to go through Congress. Is the Senate ready to really dismantle the federal bureaucracy like they're talking about?
Well, I think this is long overdue, honestly. And frankly, I'm excited because, you know, there is a very low percentage of federal workers who are actually back at work. There was one report not that long ago of a study that had done, it was reported on by the New York Times, that said only 6% of federal workers are back. You know, if that's true, there ought to be some real opportunities to achieve some savings. And frankly, for that matter, why do we have all these agencies and departments here in Washington, D.C.? They could be other places around the country because people aren't showing up at the office anyway. So I think there's a real opportunity here, some of which can be done through the president's executive actions, some of which may need to go through the Congress, again, which means you've got in the Senate. That's not easy. You got to have some Democrats. But I think people in this country are ready. They are hungry for a leaner, more effective, more efficient federal government that distributes power out of Washington, gets the control out of here, and back in the hands of the American people.
And finally, just back to those appointments. Do you think Matt Gaetz can get through?
Well, I don't know the answer to that just yet. I mean, obviously, as you point out, there certainly are some skeptics, but he deserves a process.
RFK Jr., you think he can get through? Same answer?
They deserve a process, yeah. I mean, there are nominees that the president has put forward, and, you know, the Senate has the role of advise and consent under the Constitution. So they deserve a hearing, and we'll proceed accordingly if these become official noms. And if you were to bet,
would you have to do recess appointments? You're saying yes or no? Would you say?
Well, I hate to say yes or no because I think that's still an open question. My view is we want to do this the regular way and give the Democrats a chance to work with us on getting people in place. And the first ones that are going to come up are the national security, and I hope the Democrats will work with us on defense and CIA and NSA and some of those and state. But if they become obstacles and obstructionists to moving these along, I mean, we're going to grind them out on the floor of the United States Senate. I just said we're not taking any options off the table.
Well, Senator, thank you very much. Come back, and we'll have another discussion as you get going.
Sounds good. Thanks, Brett. Good to be with you.
Because I saw this on Twitter, and it's an interesting point that has been made. Both Dakota's North and South, their current governors right now, have been tapped to join cabinet positions in a second Trump administration. South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem at Department of Homeland Security, DHS, and now just tonight you heard North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum getting tapped to go to the Interior Department. Of course, there was an election to succeed Burgum at the governor's mansion there in Bismarck. Former Republican Congressman Kelly Armstrong winning that race there. So just thought that was interesting, some Dakota's trivia, so to speak. Let's take a quick commercial break, or a little past the bottom of the hour. When we come back, we're diverting briefly. There are a lot of international headlines to get to on the Israel-Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas conflict. Also, Biden landing in South America, in Lima, Peru, at the start of the APEC summit. On the sidelines, he'll be meeting with Xi Jinping of China. We'll be previewing that. But also some of these Trump foreign policy picks. What does it mean for his foreign policy view going forward? All of that and more after the break.
Again, a confirmed tornado on the ground in downtown Conyers. This is a very dangerous and life-threatening weather event. Get into the interior section of your house, away from windows or a basement if you have. And there's the debris right there in the Millstead area near the Rockdale Medical Center. Right. Channel 1 Atlanta.
There is a storm coming, an event like the world has never seen before. The emerging event will have little to do with weather, but more about developing situations that were foreseen many years ago. We have always warned you during severe weather and news events that affected many. Now, Channel 1 Atlanta begins a new series to warn you about what's coming soon and make sure you are prepared. Join us on a new journey, as according to a recent survey, a lot of people believe we are living in the last days. Current news events show us now more than ever. In history, time is setting the stage for the coming storm. A new series, now playing only on Channel 1 Atlanta.
Issues with some of the homes that sit right next to the ocean. Earlier this year, we were covering stories of homes slipping into the ocean. It doesn't have to be the strongest storm all year to deal that final blow. I don't necessarily think we'll see something like that happen with this particular system, but we can't rule it out for some of these businesses and infrastructure that have already been ruled a little bit unsturdy here. Wind alerts are also another key feature to this. High wind warnings and wind advisories. The high wind warning extends again for the Outer Banks, so that's really going to be the area that sees the worst of the conditions. It's already been breezy for this evening and will continue to be breezy into the overnight hours. By Friday, this is 1 a.m. Eastern Time, 50 to 60 miles per hour for Hatteras. Down towards Charleston, you're not calm, but a lot better, 20 to 30 miles per hour. That low will eventually push farther off into the Atlantic. We'll still leave the gusty winds with that low pressure interacting with the high pressure sitting farther towards the north in the northeast. But overall, once you get into Friday evening, things do begin to calm down. We were just talking with somebody from the National Weather Service in Charleston, and he pointed that we're in the king tide cycle as well. So the high tides are already going to be more impactful than they previously were. Then you tack on the winds pushing that even further. That's why this is a little bit more of a concern than what it would normally be. Thursday in the afternoon, notice we had that heavy blanket of rain, but for a spot like Asheville, they actually began to dry out. They took on the heavy rain, but it was quick moving. As we mentioned, overnight hours, Hatteras, Kill Devil Hills, Norfolk will be seeing some of the heavy rain there as well. But the good piece of this is the worst of the rain that would be most impactful for folks traveling around the area. It should be when everybody's asleep. Now, your morning commute, you're going to see a few impacts, but by the time you make your way out, maybe for an early end to the workday, just a few scattered showers there. And cooler air comes in behind it as well, drier air. So that's going to be very nice for anybody who's celebrating college football or any kind of fun weekend events. Some impacts for a spot like Corolla, North Carolina. You can see by Friday into the early morning, 2 to 3 feet above dry ground. You'll see that again Saturday in the early morning as well. And winter is going to be here before you know it. We've already had the first big winter storm of the year. That was fairly historic for the Rockies. And just last year, we saw scenes like this. This was out of Hamburg, New York, where the icicles were forming almost ice castles right along the Great Lakes. Now, what is going to happen this year? We've been talking about all the different oscillations in regards to hurricane season and what that means for winter. At this point, the 2024-2025 winter outlook was issued quite a bit ago, and they called for cooler temperatures for the northern half of the United States, but warmer basically for everybody else. The areas that are expecting to see more rain, also the Pac Northwest and the Great Lakes, drier for our southern friends, which is a bit of a concern because they've been so dry for the past 6 weeks before this previous storm. And so because of that, drought conditions have been a big problem. For the winter outlook, we have a decreasing odds of developing into a La Nina. We were actually expecting to see a La Nina much earlier into hurricane season, but it's just not coming together. It's not forming quite yet. And so a weak La Nina will lead to less typical impacts of a more classic La Nina winter year. But at this point, we might be in an ENSO neutral. The water temperatures have really been fluctuating. Yes, it's cooler in this body of water in the Eastern Pacific, and that's where we look at to see what the water temperatures are doing. If it's warmer in this area, you're in an El Nino. Cooler, that's the La Nina. We're just not quite there yet. So what does this mean for snow? Because everybody wants to know, especially after kind of a disappointing year for snow folks out across the Northeast. It doesn't mean much snow, truly. It's going to be wetter potentially for the Southeast if we do see this ENSO neutral, and then cooler for the northern half. Now, that's not to say we won't get a snow event. There's a lot of other micro factors that go into will you have a storm system, will you not, including the North Atlantic Oscillation and the Arctic Oscillation. So a lot of things that you really have to take into account. I mean, just take this graphic. This was the last time we had a weak La Nina, called for wetter conditions in the Pac Northwest. And it was actually drier. So this is just the overall expectations, but clearly there's a lot of little things that we'll have to be forecasting over the next few months to really tell you if you'll see that white Christmas. And up next, a trail of devastation left behind by the mountain fire across Southern California last week. Thousands of people were forced to evacuate. We're going to talk to a woman who sprang into action to rescue horses. We'll hear her story next.
It's time to add some extra steps to your day.
If you're shopping for a home, you could browse hundreds of listings, or you could compare home details all at once. Home values to find that hidden bargain. Lot sizes for more room to play. Year built for that mid-century original. And market hotness to buy in the hot neighborhood before it's a hot neighborhood. Search in full color and find the home that has it all. Try RealView Maps, only on Realtor.com.
Hims & Hers helps people live better lives through better health care. That's why we're offering teachers, first responders, nurses, military and veterans GLP-1 weight loss treatment plans for up to 50% off. Find personalized prescription plans that serve your goals 100% online. Through Hims & Hers, you also get access to tracking tools and unlimited chat support from licensed medical providers. Our communities rely on you. Now you can rely on us for quality care. Get the service appreciation discount for up to 50% off at Hims and Hers.
I wish my TV provider let me choose what I pay for. I wish my TV provider let me choose what I pay for and let me pause my subscription when I want. Sling, let you do that.
Choose and customize your channel lineup or watch for free.
All as we track Tropical Storm Sarah. Here's a look at Roatán Bay Islands near Honduras. You can see the winds coming up and whatever's dangling in front of that camera, clearly blowing quite fast. The rain coming down. It's really the rain that's going to be the biggest influence for Honduras, especially because it loses its steering pattern and just sits there over Central America, just dumping buckets of rain. By the time it's all said and done, we could see over 30 inches. And no matter where you are, that is a lot, and that is going to be a big problem. The water vapor just pointing out how much moisture is available in the Caribbean, but notice around it. In the Gulf, we have drier air, and even in the Bahamas, it has been able to find this sweet spot, a Goldilocks zone, if you will, just to maintain this tropical storm strength. Thankfully, moving forward, we're not expecting anymore to see Hurricane Sarah. Can't completely rule it out, though, but we just have a hostile wind environment into the Gulf of Mexico, something very common as we have more of the cold fronts, dips in the jet stream into the fall, getting closer to winter months here. And that's why hurricane season is officially over November 30th. That's not to say we can't see something, form subtropically or even tropically beyond that window. It's just very unlikely. The exclusive Fox model through the weekend, this is Sunday early morning. We still have rain parked over Honduras and Guatemala. Thankfully, it's moving a little farther out west. And so that's what's helpful, only to give breaks for folks out in Honduras, Floridians, just something that we're going to look out for. But thankfully, the worst case scenario really doesn't seem to be unfolding for the Sunshine State. And we continue to monitor a coastal storm that will impact the Carolina coast. The storm is expected to bring 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts, outages, coastal flooding, really the whole 9 yards of what you can expect from that coastal system kind of running in here. Our Fox Weather storm trackers, they're all over it, one of which being Mark Suddeth, and he's placed his live cameras all along the storm's impact zone. Exclusive Fox Weather storm tracker Mark Suddeth joins me now over the phone to break down this threat. Mark, hopefully you can hear me. I know you're from the area. What is your expectation from this storm, especially for spots along the Outer Banks, because some of the infrastructure is already a little bit loosened from the systems they've had previously, especially with 50 to 60 mile an hour wind gusts?
Well, it's interesting. This is kind of a quick hitter. It's been pretty much summer-like here for the last several weeks, not November-esque at all. And now we're going to have this nor'easter coastal storm very quickly developing overnight tonight through tomorrow. Eastern North Carolina, the Outer Banks, very vulnerable to those north winds, the potential for overwash, and the high surf advisory, all of that And, of course, Highway 12 out there, very vulnerable to houses collapsing in Rodanthe and Merlo Beach. We've seen that several times already this year. And Robert Ray and I will be out there bright and early tomorrow morning covering it. I guess it won't be too bright, but it'll still be early, yes.
Great point there. My big question, though, your cameras are key to helping us understand what's going on in these storms, especially for some of the most dangerous areas. Where have you set up your cameras, and what are you expecting to capture with some of your locations?
So in this situation, we have a couple of permanent cameras out there in Rodanthe, out there on the Outer Banks, and some homeowners out there and businesses allow us to put these permanent cams out. So those are going to be watching from sort of a higher perspective. And then I'm going to go out. I'm going to be leaving here in just a little while. It's only a few-hour drive for me. And with that morning high tide tomorrow, the idea is to put a couple of these cameras right down where a lot of this overwash can happen and just sort of tell the story of this constant battle between man and the ocean out there and the elements. And we can do so using these camera systems, and hopefully we're going to do something really spectacular later in the day tomorrow. I'm not going to spoil it. I think you know what it is.
Yeah.
Robert and I are going to be working on it, and to kind of give a different perspective of how the weather does what it does. We look forward to bringing you that on Fox Weather tomorrow.
Yeah, I won't give anybody listening any spoilers, but it is a reason to tune in because it was really, really cool. Mark, you've lived in North Carolina for such a long time. How does this system stack up to stuff that they're used to seeing? I mean, you're on the coast. Coastal storms aren't necessarily uncommon. What is this expectation for folks across North Carolina?
It's interesting. In this situation, it's going to literally be very fast, in and out tomorrow. So that'll be one positive side to it. It's not going to linger. So we're not going to have high tide after high tide coming in and just pulverizing the area. But it's still popular out there. People want to go out there, do some fishing. You know, the Outer Banks, very busy during the summer. It starts to wind down this time of year. But there's still people that want to get out there and enjoy it. Yet there's going to be the potential for rapid water rises, especially in Ocracoke Island, and Hatteras Village, where you get that north wind screaming down the Pamlico Sound. I mean, Haley, it is storm surge. It's just not from a tropical system, but it's the water being pushed onto the land by the wind, and it could be pretty problematic. But again, it's going to be an in-and-out situation, which is the best scenario concerning what we've seen in the past and what this could have been.
Quick systems really are the best. You know, if anything does happen, which hopefully we're not talking too big of impacts for the Carolinas recovery efforts, anything that does need to go into place, the bucket trucks can come out and get everything running smoothly by the time people wake up on Saturday morning. Hopefully that's really the story there. Things actually look a lot better for the afternoon. So, Mark, I hope you still have a great weekend ahead of you, despite, having to work a little bit later on Friday morning and into the afternoon. Exclusive Fox Weather Storm Tracker Mark Sudduth joining us again. And guys, I'm telling you, you really do want to tune in tomorrow because those videos that he's talking about are really, really cool. I'm super excited. Now, in terms of travel, there are storms that are bringing some disruptions. It does include spots like Atlanta and Raleigh-Durham International Airport, two very big hubs for this area. What are we expecting, though, for the Mid-Atlantic? What does this mean for weekend impacts, especially with a lot of sports going on, a lot of concerts, too? I mean, Sabrina Carpenter's still touring. I think Taylor Swift's done touring here. But, people really want to go out and enjoy their weekends. So for today, we had some disruptions from Washington all the way down to Raleigh-Durham, Richmond, Baltimore. If you're in this yellow zone, that's not bad. Maybe you might have a delay or two, and that might hurt you if you have shorter layovers. But overall, you can still get to your destination okay. What does that mean, though, moving forward? So Thursday, we had all of that rain that moved through the southeast. For spots in the northeast, we've got a high-pressure system that has been blocking any kind of rain, and honestly, we desperately need it. For spots across the Pac Northwest, some snow could disrupt some travel on the higher mountainous areas, maybe closer to Salt Lake City, maybe not quite on Friday into the afternoon, but maybe by the time we get into Saturday early morning as that system pulls farther inland. But notice for the southeast, for Saturday, it's clear skies and great flying here, especially if you can hop on that jet stream. You can get to your destination a little bit quicker than most. By Sunday, maybe you're thinking about return trips. We are tracking a threat for severe weather. That'll be for central Texas. So notice DFW, we are seeing some concerns there. So that'll be the spot to watch for maybe some delays and cancellations going into the weekend. And this is a bird's eye view in New Jersey as they continue to battle the Jennings Creek fire. Smoke has been filling the city and a lot of neighborhoods around the area as well. I had a friend that lives in Manhattan. She almost called her super to say that someone was smoking in the building because it smelt so potent in her apartment. This is one of many fires, though, that's been burning across the Northeast. At this point, it's burned more than 2,200 acres. It's at 50% containment. The bad news is, though, that the fire threat won't be easing up in the near future, and we have yet another multi-day fire threat tomorrow and into the weekend. So you can see we've got a lot of fire going on around the area. Some of the video looks a bit catastrophic, almost looks like lava kind of spilling in through the woods, and we're in the fall months, so you have a lot of dense tree leaves that have fallen on the ground, and that's fuel. Pompton Lakes, 100% contained. Move over to Englewood Cliff, 75% contained, but truly it's that Jennings Creek fire that is the biggest concern. The fire department in New York has responded to over 200 brush fires in the last few weeks, a record set, I believe, for them. The wind direction is a big factor in what areas are going to see that smoke and really smell it in the air. So this is Friday into the afternoon. If you live towards Mount Olive, you're in a good spot in New Jersey. But notice for Patterson and even into Manhattan, because the winds are coming out of the northwest, you're going to get that smoke pulling into the area. Even folks in Queens and Brooklyn, you will see some more of that smoke kind of infiltrating into the area. And as I mentioned, we don't have a significant rain event. Yes, there's rain for the southeast and towards D.C., but that strong high pressure has been a shield that's saying no rain coming over here. None for New York, none up towards Connecticut, Boston, Rhode Island. And those are areas where we have red flag warnings at this point in time. So we'll be waiting for that rain threat. We'll get there eventually. But out west, we have a similar threat in terms of fire weather. When the mountain fire erupted in Ventura County, California last week, many residents had only minutes to flee. But for equestrian communities, the situation was far more complicated. One equestrian trainer sprang into action and was able to rescue dozens of horses. That trainer spoke with Fox Weather earlier. Take a listen.
One of my girlfriends called me when the fire broke out and basically said she had a new friend to the area and the fire had broke out across the street from her location. She didn't have any vehicles to get her horses out. So I have done this before and I didn't think much of it. So I just jumped in the trailer with my assistant Tony and we drove over, and little did I expect it to be as dire and smoky and escalated as it already was. I was quite nervous. On one of the videos, you can hear it in my voice a little bit. I drove through a lot of the smoke. We couldn't see very much in front of us, and I had a hard time finding Erin is the girl's name. But once I got into our property, I mean, all you could see was orange smoke around us, and we got the horses in the trailer as quickly as we could. And I thought that I was being smart by going out the driveway the opposite direction, but it actually was worse. And I ran into a fireman and I stopped and I said, I can't turn around. What do I do? And he looked at me and he said, you stay in the middle of the road. Whatever you do, do not stop. And if you have shavings in the trailer, make sure your windows are closed. Wow. And as I was pulling away, he wished me luck. And bless Tony, I got to say, the man who works for me, he probably got me through it. He pulled out his phone and pulled up the navigation in front of us, and he was telling me when to turn, when to go straight, and that kind of stuff, because all I was seeing was smoke and feeling the heat, and I thought that I had made a huge mistake and was actually going to go up in flames. Later in the afternoon, I actually went back to the origin of where the fire started. I just had a funny feeling, and one of the little horses that you keep airing, we found a bunch of horses tied to trees, dogs running loose, people that just looked helpless, and we loaded up another 5 horses and made another trip to the Ventura County Fairgrounds. But it was dire.
It really has been a coast-to-coast threat with that fire weather. Clear skies, though, in New York City. Just wishing for a little bit of rain. Doesn't look likely. More Fox weather is on the way. Stay with us.
If you're a Medicare beneficiary, call now to see how a
There is a storm coming, an event like the world has never seen before. The emerging event will have little to do with weather, but more about developing situations that were foreseen many years ago. We have always warned you during severe weather and news events that affected many. Now, Channel 1 Atlanta begins a new series to warn you about what's coming soon and make sure you are prepared. Join us on a new journey, as according to a recent survey, a lot of people believe we are living in the last days. Current news events show us now more than ever. In history, time is setting the stage for the coming storm, a new series, now playing only on Channel 1 Atlanta.
At Lawrenceville, it was mostly cloudy and 49, wind west at 3. At Cartersville, it was mostly cloudy and 54, wind calm. At Kennesaw, it was cloudy and 53, wind calm. At Hampton, with fog, it was 53, wind north at 3. At Covington, it was cloudy and 52, wind calm. At Monroe, it was cloudy, the temperature was 50. Elsewhere around the region, at Athens, with fog, it was 49, wind calm. At Gainesville, with fog, it was 51, wind west at 6. At Macon, it was cloudy and 55, wind north at 6. At Columbus, it was clear and 59, wind northeast at 3. At Birmingham, it was clear and 56, wind north at 10. At Rome, it was partly cloudy and 50, wind calm. At Chattanooga, it was partly cloudy and 57, wind north at 9. At Asheville, it was cloudy and 48, wind calm. At Augusta, it was cloudy and 54, wind north at 9. At St. Simon's Island, it was mostly cloudy and 70, wind west at 5. Here is the official forecast from your National Weather Service for the Atlanta listening area. Tonight, mostly cloudy early, then becoming partly cloudy. Lows in the mid-40s. Northwest winds up to 10 miles an hour. Friday, sunny. Highs in the mid-60s. Northwest winds 10 to 15 miles an hour. Friday night, clear. Lows in the lower 40s. Light north winds. Saturday, sunny. Highs in the upper 60s. West winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Saturday night, clear. Lows in the lower 40s. Light and variable winds. And now the extended forecast. Sunday and Sunday night, mostly clear. Highs in the upper 60s. Lows in the mid-40s. Monday and Monday night, partly cloudy. Highs in the lower 70s. Lows in the lower 50s. Tuesday and Tuesday night, mostly cloudy with a 50% chance of showers. Highs in the lower 70s. Lows in the upper 50s. Wednesday and Wednesday night, mostly cloudy with a 30% chance of showers. Highs in the upper 60s. Lows in the upper 40s. Thursday and Thursday night, mostly cloudy. A 20% chance of showers. Highs in the upper 50s. Lows in the lower 40s. For more detailed weather, water, and climate information, please visit our website at weather.gov/Atlanta. Here is the hazardous weather outlook. This hazardous weather outlook is for north and central Georgia. For tonight, the probability for widespread hazardous weather is low. Patchy fog is possible overnight, mainly across the eastern portion of the forecast area. And now the extended outlook for the period Friday through Wednesday, the probability for widespread hazardous weather is low. The potential for showers will return on Tuesday and Wednesday as a cold front approaches. Spotter information statement. Spotter activation will not be needed through tonight. The current time is 10:01 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Here are the 9 p.m. weather observations from around the area. At Atlanta, with fog, the temperature was 55 degrees, dew point 51 degrees, relative humidity 86%, wind northwest at 7 miles an hour, pressure was 30.00 inches and rising. Around Atlanta, at Chamblee, it was cloudy and 52, wind northwest at 3. At Marietta, with fog, it was 54, wind northwest at 3. At Mableton, it was cloudy and 53, wind calm. At Peachtree City, it was cloudy and 55, wind north at 3. At Lawrenceville, it was mostly cloudy and 49, wind west at 3. At Cartersville, it was mostly cloudy and 54, wind calm. At Kennesaw, it was cloudy and 53, wind calm. At Hampton, with fog, it was 53, wind north at 3. At Covington, it was cloudy and 52, wind calm. At Monroe, it was cloudy, the temperature was 50. Elsewhere around the region, at Athens, with fog, it was 49, wind calm. At Gainesville, with fog, it was 51, wind west at 6. At Macon, it was cloudy and 55, wind north at 6. At Columbus, it was clear and 59, wind northeast at 3. At Birmingham, it was clear and 56, wind north at 10. At Rome, it was partly cloudy and 50, wind calm. At Chattanooga, it was partly cloudy and 57, wind north at 9. At Asheville, it was cloudy and 48, wind calm. At Augusta, it was cloudy and 54, wind north at 9. At St. Simon's Island, it was mostly cloudy and 70, wind west at 5. Here is the official forecast from your National Weather Service for the Atlanta listening area. Tonight, mostly cloudy early, then becoming partly cloudy. Lows in the mid-40s. Northwest winds up to 10 miles an hour. Friday, sunny. Highs in the mid-60s. Northwest winds 10 to 15 miles an hour. Friday night, clear. Lows in the lower 40s. Light north winds. Saturday, sunny. Highs in the upper 60s. West winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Saturday night, clear. Lows in the lower 40s. Light and variable winds. And now the extended forecast. Sunday and Sunday night, mostly clear. Highs in the upper 60s. Lows in the mid-40s. Monday and Monday night, partly cloudy. Highs in the lower 70s. Lows in the lower 50s. Tuesday and Tuesday night, mostly cloudy with a 50% chance of showers. Highs in the lower 70s. Lows in the upper 50s. Wednesday and Wednesday night, mostly cloudy with a 30% chance of showers. Highs in the upper 60s. Lows in the upper 40s. Thursday and Thursday night, mostly cloudy. A 20% chance of showers. Highs in the upper 50s. Lows in the lower 40s. For more detailed weather, water, and climate information, please visit our website at weather.gov/Atlanta. Here is the hazardous weather outlook. This hazardous weather outlook is for north and central Georgia. For tonight, the probability for widespread hazardous weather is low. Patchy fog is possible overnight, mainly across the eastern portion of the forecast area. And now the extended outlook for the period Friday through Wednesday, the probability for widespread hazardous weather is low. The potential for showers will return on Tuesday and Wednesday as a cold front approaches. Spotter information statement. Spotter activation will not be needed through tonight. The current time is 10:06 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Here are the 10 p.m. weather observations from around the area. At Atlanta, with fog, the temperature was 55 degrees, dew point 52 degrees, relative humidity 89%, wind northwest at 5 miles an hour, pressure was 30.00 inches and steady. Around Atlanta, at Chamblee, it was cloudy and 52, wind west at 6. At Marietta, it was mostly cloudy and 53, wind west at 6. At Mableton, it was cloudy and 54, wind calm. At Peachtree City, it was cloudy and 54, wind calm. At Lawrenceville, it was cloudy and 52, wind west at 6. At Kennesaw, it was mostly cloudy and 53, wind west at 3. Elsewhere around the region, at Athens, with fog, it was 50, wind calm. At Gainesville, with fog, it was 51, wind west at 6. At Macon, it was cloudy and 55, wind north at 5. At Columbus, it was clear and 57, wind northeast at 3. At Birmingham, it was clear and 53, wind north at 7. At Rome, it was mostly cloudy and 49, wind calm. At Chattanooga, it was mostly cloudy and 54, wind northwest at 3. At Asheville, it was cloudy and 48, wind south at 3. At Augusta, it was cloudy and 54, wind north at 7. Here is the official forecast from your National Weather Service for the Atlanta listening area. Tonight, mostly cloudy early, then becoming partly cloudy. Lows in the mid-40s. Northwest winds up to 10 miles an hour. Friday, sunny. Highs in the mid-60s. Northwest winds 10 to 15 miles an hour. Friday night, clear. Lows in the lower 40s. Light north winds. Saturday, sunny. Highs in the upper 60s. West winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Saturday night, clear. Lows in the lower 40s. Light and variable winds. And now the extended forecast. Sunday and Sunday night, mostly clear. Highs in the upper 60s. Lows in the mid-40s. Monday and Monday night, partly cloudy. Highs in the lower 70s. Lows in the lower 50s. Tuesday and Tuesday night, mostly cloudy with a 50% chance of showers. Highs in the lower 70s. Lows in the upper 50s. Wednesday and Wednesday night, mostly cloudy with a 30% chance of showers. Highs in the upper 60s. Lows in the upper 40s. Thursday and Thursday night, mostly cloudy. A 20% chance of showers. Highs in the upper 50s. Lows in the lower 40s. For more detailed weather, water, and climate information, please visit our website at weather.gov/Atlanta. Here is the hazardous weather outlook. This hazardous weather outlook is for north and central Georgia. For tonight, the probability for widespread hazardous weather is low. Patchy fog is possible overnight, mainly across the eastern portion of the forecast area. And now the extended outlook for the period Friday through Wednesday, the probability for widespread hazardous weather is low. The potential for showers will return on Tuesday and Wednesday as a cold front approaches. Spotter information statement. Spotter activation will not be needed through tonight. The current time is 10:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Here are the 10 p.m. weather observations from around the area. At Atlanta, with fog, the temperature was 55 degrees, dew point 52 degrees, relative humidity 89%, wind northwest at 5 miles an hour, pressure was 30.00 inches and steady. Around Atlanta, at Chamblee, it was cloudy and 52, wind west at 6. At Marietta, it was mostly cloudy and 53, wind west at 6. At Mabel...
My name is Dan Bristol. I am a volunteer race director.
We are your Hurricane HQ, and we're tracking Tropical Storm Sarah. Here's a look at Roatan Bay in the islands near Honduras. That's the area that's set to take on the most significant impacts from Sarah, that being torrential rain. Now, the Central American countries have a lot of mountainous terrain, and that can squeeze out a lot of moisture there, and that is leading to concerns for mudslides, debris flows for this part of Central America. Moving forward, though, the forecast models have inched it farther and farther towards the left as to where that center of circulation will go, which means more interaction with the land. So at one point, we were expecting Sarah to become a hurricane. Now that's less of the model consensus, 50 miles per hour and then rapid weakening as it interacts with basically the widest point of the Yucatan Peninsula. Eventually, it will eject into the Gulf of Mexico, but it won't be as strong of a system, and that is good news for folks along the Gulf Coast in the United States. The model consensus here is also very strong, but really since the inception of Sarah, and really when it was a PTC as well, the models had a good idea as to what was going to happen with this in the Caribbean. And then we had more of that disparity as it head into the Gulf of Mexico due to a dip in the jet stream and a high pressure system. Some models still have some semblance of organization, the GFS, the Canadian model, as it moves into the Gulf of Mexico. But farther north into the northern Gulf, we have cooler water temperatures, in some instances just shy of 80 degrees, and a hostile wind environment. So both of those factors would rapidly weaken anything that would move into the Gulf and get close to the United States. That consensus still is popping off into the Gulf. And despite not having potentially a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico, that moisture is still going to be present and eventually will get get spread into Florida. So still a wet forecast for folks along the Gulf, but certainly avoiding a worst case scenario, at least with how things have been trending so far. The future radar with the exclusive Fox model highlighting the stationary nature of this. The steering pattern really dissipates as it moves over Central America, and that's the biggest concern with the rain totals really piling up for Nicaragua, primarily Honduras, and into Guatemala. So those will be the spots that we watch the most significant impacts from Sarah. Still something to at least keep an eye on and check in on over the weekend as we kind of wait to see what happens early next week when it pops into the Gulf. Charleston, South Carolina, an area expecting to see significant rainfall from the latest coastal storm that's making its way towards the city. Already seeing that rain beginning to pile up. Storm reports piling in for the city. Charleston, South Carolina picked up some flooding early this morning. Tide levels at the Charleston Harbor peaked in major flood stage at around 8 feet. This all coming ahead of a powerful but quick coastal storm that's going to be targeting Virginia and the Carolinas tomorrow morning. Joining me now to talk more about this is meteorologist in charge for the Charleston National Weather Service, Brian Haynes. Brian, thanks for joining us tonight. Can you talk a little more about the king tides that brought on the flooding in Charleston this morning and why there's a concern about tomorrow morning as well and how that might impact folks' commute?
Haley, absolutely. So today we had some minor coastal flooding at Charleston Harbor. What we are looking at now is also the king tides and what we call the perigee. Basically, we have the sun, you have the earth, and the moon all aligned, so they're all pulling the gravity at the same direction, meaning abnormally high tides. We saw that this morning. So those astronomical high tides, basically the tides that aren't from the weather, continue to rise through the weekend, and then we have the weather on top of it. So this weekend in particular, Saturday morning, Friday morning, Sunday morning, that Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning high tides, that's a primary concern here in Charleston. In particular, that Saturday morning high tide, we are looking at potentially major coastal flooding. That means numerous road closures in downtown Charleston. We have a market, a street that a lot of people walk around on, shop on during the weekend, and that's definitely a concern this weekend with that major coastal flooding forecast.
Yeah, over the weekend, everybody wants to get out. Charleston's one of my favorite cities in the U.S., so I don't blame them. Probably a lot of tourists, maybe not as many as you'd see over the summer. Can you just speak to some of the rain totals you had across Charleston today with that front as it moved through, and how much rain you're expecting tomorrow, and what that means for further freshwater flooding going into tomorrow morning before things begin to dry out by the afternoon?
Yeah, rainfall totals haven't been that high for today. Luckily, that has been a blessing, so to speak. It really is going to be that saltwater component. Tomorrow we dry out. Really tonight, what you see on the radar is pretty much what we're expecting over the next couple days, or basically through today. And then tomorrow we dry out significantly. And luckily through the weekend, we're actually dry as well. So a lot of times when we do have these king tides, we have to worry about the fresh and saltwater component. Luckily, it's only the saltwater component this time.
And that's good news. I feel like recently over 2024, we've had so many meteorologists here go to Charleston to cover weather events, and I feel like they're a bit storm fatigued, especially with the flooding. Has there been any new policies or anything new put into place infrastructure-wise after the past flooding events that make something like this almost not necessarily a no-brainer, but less of an issue for the residents in the area?
One of the things that we have been really working hard is continuing that communication with Charleston Emergency Management. And we have, I think, a really great relationship. And since basically the December nor'easter, if you remember, that was December 2023, where we had major coastal flooding again. And we really sat down with Charleston Emergency Management, had a great discussion. They worked on new mitigation plans. And we're definitely involved providing them with the latest forecast to help them make that decision. So everyone in Charleston should feel good that your federal and state partners are working together actively to make a plan to where we're resilient and we're proactive.
All good things to hear. Meteorologist in charge for the Charleston National Weather Service, Brian Haynes, thanks for giving us your insight about another, 15 hours or so before the weekend comes and the weather gets a little bit better.
Thanks, Haley.
Well, these storms are also bringing some disruptions to major airports, including Atlanta International and Raleigh-Durham International. That's the first measurable rainfall for a spot like Atlanta in, I believe, about 6 weeks. So that's since late September. I mean, put that into perspective. Most people, they want to wish the rain away. But at this point, even here in New York, I am really craving a little bit of rain. So let's talk about those travel disruptions. We've had over 3,000 flights en route over the course of the day. Significant delays in certain spots, not so many in terms of the cancellations, but the worst airports, again, Atlanta, Charlotte, Chicago, because you have that big system with the cold front that's been sweeping through the eastern half of the United States. Now, I'm jumping on a plane to go watch my friend get married this weekend, so I'm hoping the rain goes away and I'm not dealing with any kind of flight delays, because that is the worst when it impedes on your plans. And thankfully for the weekend, a lot of this rain will begin to kind of push out of the area. And overall, you know, weather happens all the time. Flights are used to this, so a little bit of rain isn't going to significantly impact your travel plans. For the morning going into today, Atlanta, Charlotte, they had some delays, but going into the evening, things look a lot better, especially for Atlanta, as that system really does pull away and off of the Atlantic coast. For a spot like Washington, D.C. and their area airports, yes, they had some issues earlier as the rain came through, a couple pockets of heavy rain. But since it's just been this light to moderate shower, nothing that airports aren't used to and our fully trained pilots can't handle for you. And the historic drought across the Northeast triggered a brush fire in New York City. The FDNY battled this alarm fire for hours yesterday in Inwood Hill Park. This comes as crews work around the clock to contain the Jennings Creek wildfire along the New Jersey-New York border. We are bone dry up here. As I mentioned, we're craving some rain. So is the ground. FDNY really been busting it hard over the last few days, just brush fires popping up consistently. Fox News multimedia reporter Bowen Kondrovich is in Greenwood Lake, New York, as the firefighting continues, working to bring the stories to you firsthand as there is fires that are ongoing in Manhattan. Let's hear what he has to say.
Conditions are very hazy here. It definitely seems like the smoke is much more widespread today than it was yesterday. As soon as you step outside here, you are instantly hit with the smell of smoke. And you might be able to see some of that smoke coming off the hill right over to my right shoulder here, where crews are still working to contain the fire. Schools here are closed for the rest of the week. No mandatory evacuations are put in place yet, but some people living in this town say they have a plan in place if they need to get out.
My wife is worried, you know, like about all the fire, where it's going to go, and she's following everything. And we get some stuff that's ready just in case, and we have family that lives in Newburgh and family that lives in New Jersey, so everybody's going, just come over whenever you want, so you know.
About 50 miles away, crews are trying to put out a wildfire in New York City. The fire broke out yesterday in Upper Manhattan, and over 100 firefighters are at the scene. Dry and windy conditions have led to hundreds of brush fires across the city in just a couple of weeks. State officials are telling people not to burn anything outside for now. In Greenwood Lake, New York, Bowen Kondrovich, Fox Weather.
And up next, Tropical Storm Sarah churning in the Caribbean off the coast of Honduras. We're tracking its path and if the U.S. should expect any impacts. Fox Weather is your Hurricane HQ.
If you're a Medicare beneficiary, call.
I still love to surf, snowboard, and of course skate. So I take Cunol Magnesium to support my muscle and bone health. Cunol's high-absorption magnesium glycinate helps me get the full benefits of magnesium. Cunol, the brand I trust.
I've been using this product. It's called Muesli, and I've been telling everybody about it because it's been life-changing to me. I go into a lot of things thinking it's not going to work, and I thought muesli would be the same thing, but it wasn't.
People are like, what are you doing? Because my skin looks completely different than it did. I feel like people can see me for me because of how confident I feel.
Find the real you again. Go to muesli.com/TV.
At the Nitto ATP Finals, live on Tennis Channel, the year's top 8 man will take the stage in Turin, Italy. I would never give up. To vie for the season's ultimate title. Don't miss any of the high-stakes action as the sport's biggest stars show why they're the best in the world in a battle for glory at one of the game's most prestigious events, the Nitto ATP Finals. Live coverage now through November 17th on Tennis Channel.
Gut health is not talked about enough, especially for perimenopausal and menopausal women who are trying to figure out what supplement to take. This is a key part of it for me. Within 2.5 weeks, I noticed immediately a difference in my wellness, in my gut. I think because it has helped regulate my gut so much that my skin, my hair, my nails has all coincided with being a healthier, better person because of AG1.
Are you ready for an electric joyride? It's just a few clicks away. Introducing electric e-bikes. Experience what it's like to feel like a kid again. And feel confident with the best-selling electric bike in the U.S. We have every type of bike for every type of rider. Ships to your doorstep for free. Hop on to our Black Friday sale now and get free accessories with your purchase. Only at electricebikes.com. Electric e-bikes. Affordably awesome.
The border isn't just broken, it's shattered. And the cost isn't just in dollars, it's in lives.
Sanctuary America, streaming now on Fox Nation.
Welcome back to Fox Weather Live. A late season tropical system swirling in the Caribbean, and it's strengthened into Tropical Storm Sarah. Right now, unleashing heavy rain for Central America, so that does include the threat for flash flooding. You can see just the heavy rain behind me. Sarah marks the 18th named storm of this hurricane season. We are officially by the ACE index, accumulated cyclone energy, in the extreme category for activity this year. This system probably not going to add too much to the overall totals. 40 miles per hour for that wind speed here. Not expecting to be a hurricane quite yet. So let's dive into what we are expecting with Sarah, because at one point there were some impacts that we could have with Florida. Now that looks less and less likely. So for Floridians, this is a good news forecast for you. The forecast track so far is still some strengthening expected, about 50 miles per hour by the time we get to Friday, still maintaining 50 mile per hour for that wind speed into Sunday. But by Monday, that's when it really does get influenced by the Yucatan Peninsula and gets shredded out. And by the time it enters into the Gulf of Mexico, really not a storm at all anymore. Tropical alerts still in place for Honduras and Nicaragua. They include tropical storm warnings and tropical storm watches. At one point, we were looking at hurricane watches, but because the models have been shifting farther west and pushing it deeper into land, there just isn't a great opportunity for Sarah to strengthen. And for all of you who are watching, who are ready for hurricane season to be over, this is exactly what we want to see in terms of a trend. The enhanced satellite just showing the scope of where we have cloudy skies, maybe some rain extending into the Caymans and Jamaica. Impacts here will be fairly minimal to none, but truly Belize could also see some impacts as well with coastal flooding and the winds blowing onto shore, but specifically Honduras in excess of 30 inches potentially when things are all said and done because Sarah loses its steering currents. Right now it's a high pressure that's pushing it into Central America, but eventually that will start to shift and then nothing. So it just lingers there. And that's why Honduras is going to take on the worst of the impacts. There's a lot of moisture in the Caribbean because we have a stationary boundary, and that's blocking the Gulf of Mexico right now, but acting as this pushing mechanism, just fueling all of the moisture in this one spot that Sarah is able to find itself. But once it moves beyond Central America, it has a lot to contend with. Dry air is a big concern there as well. Tropical Storm Sarah, earlier yesterday morning, that forecast trend was a Category 3 because it was expected to potentially stay just enough east that the center of circulation won't be over land as long. But clearly, things have certainly changed, which is what we've been calling for. When you don't have a center of circulation fully defined, the models are making their best informed guesses as to what really is going to happen. When you finally get that center of circulation, things can verify much better and you have more confidence in each model run. And thankfully, that confidence means the decrease in peak intensity. Some say maybe we could get to hurricane status. I rule nothing out this hurricane season, honestly, but it just does look like tropical storm will be that peak intensity. When it pops off into the Gulf of Mexico, that's when we will look deeper into the concerns of what could potentially happen for Florida. Right now, just looks like a lot of moisture going into the region, so I guess have your umbrellas ready. And this year marks 20 years since the disastrous hurricane season of 2024. It left a deep mark, or 2004, really in 2024 too. It created a deep mark for Florida here, especially with multiple systems that we had. A lot of landfalling storms, unique in 3 major hurricanes that made landfall: Charley, Francis, and Jeanne. And that was within weeks of each other. The hurricanes cost more than $45 billion in damages collectively, and it forced 1.6 million people to relocate. Florida was dubbed the plywood state after all of these storms, and each of the 3 names have since been retired. Now, I don't know about 2024 so far. Maybe we'll see Milton get retired. Helene, I think that's fairly likely here. So it's similar in years in terms of the strength of these storms. At one point, 2004 was the costliest hurricane season, and then you jump to 2005 with Katrina, kind of nudging that system out of the way. On either side of me, you can see some of the damage, but I really want to get into where these landfalls happened and how similar they are to what we had this year. Now, with what we had with Helene and Milton, notice Charley was a Category 4 near Fort Myers. That moved inland and was able to stay as a major hurricane through central Florida, then popped up towards the East Coast. That's very similar to what Milton did this year. Then you had Jeanne and Francis. These 2 storms made landfall only a few miles apart. So these areas have just been hit so hard. And I've been getting a sense, I have family that lives in Florida. People are just wanting to move at this point. They're saying, when can we catch a break? And thankfully, 2024 is about to be over with hurricane season. So hopefully we'll have some time to really catch our breath, celebrate the holidays, and really begin that rebuilding process. For 2024 so far, tied for the most landfalls in a single year. Only occurred in 5 previous years. And look at those dates: 1871, 1886, 1964, 04, and then 05. Those are significant years that we've had in hurricane seasons. Helene really being the staple of the season compared to Katrina for Appalachia. Debbie for the Big Bend, coming right after we had multiple hurricanes make landfall for the Big Bend region. I believe Debbie marked the 3rd for the Big Bend, and then finally Milton. Again, very similar path to what we had with Charley back in 04.